library friends, Miss Becky here, and today I'm going to show you how to make your own Amigurumi octopus. We'll be using a free crochet pattern from Mohair, which is an online crochet shop and blog. If this is your first time crocheting, you can find tutorials on the beginning stitches on YouTube, or if you're a carry card holder, you can use your card to find tutorials on Creative Bug. Amigurumi is a style of crochet that originated in Japan. It comes from two Japanese words, ami, meaning crocheted or knit, and nugurumi, meaning a stuffed doll. And amigurumi is often in the kawaii style, which means cute. For this project, we'll need a number 4 yarn. That's a medium yarn, and we want it in acrylic or cotton, something that isn't too fuzzy so it's easy to work with. You'll also need a size E, which is 3.5 millimeters crochet hook. Amigurumi uses a small hook to ensure that the stuffing doesn't fall out of the finished project. Then you'll also need stuffing, safety eyes, a yarn needle, a stitch marker, and the pattern. If this is your first time reading a crochet pattern, the abbreviations might not make very much sense. So here's what you need to know. The abbreviations used in this pattern are CH for chain, ST for stitch, SC for single crochet, HDC for half double crochet, SC 2 TOG for single crochet 2 together, and SL ST for slip stitch. Alright, so if this is your first time crocheting, we'll go over how to hold your crochet hook. There's a few different methods. One is the knife method, where you hold it more like you would hold a knife. The other is the pen method, where you hold it a little bit more like you would hold a pen. I hold mine like this, and I use my pointer finger sometimes to help me adjust the loops that are on my hook. The first thing we'll need to do is make a slip knot. So to do that, you stick out your pointer finger and wrap your yarn around it 2 times. Then take the 2 ends and hold them between your middle finger and thumb. Take the back part of your loop that's closest to your knuckle and move it over the front. Then again, take the back loop, move it over the front, and then take the back loop and pull up. Take your finger out, and there you have your slip knot. You'll put your hook in the slip knot loop and pull to get it nice and tight around the hook. This part here is called your tail, and then the part that goes into your ball of yarn, that's called your working yarn. Alright, so we're going to single crochet 6 in a circle, and if you've crocheted before and you have a method for starting off in the round, you can go ahead and do that. I'm going to demonstrate the chain method. So for the chain method, we start by chaining 4. If you've never crocheted before, to make a chain, you yarn over, so that's taking your working yarn and bringing it around your hook, then kind of nestle it in the crux of your hook. Then take your bottom loop and pull it up and over the top of the hook. So you pull through, and that's 1. You do that again, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, and yarn over, pull through. So once you've chained 4, you're going to take your hook and insert it back into the first chain. So that's the one that's right next to the slip knot. And you kind of have a U on your hook, And you're going to do a slip stitch where you yarn over and then pull through both loops on the hook. Okay, now you have this little blob on your hook, but if you pull it apart, there you can kind of see what looks like a pretzel or a little face with 2 top holes and 1 bottom hole. Isolate that bottom hole. You can use your finger to do this. Go ahead and pull at that yarn to isolate that center. Now we're going to do 6 single crochets, and each one is going to go through this center hole to start. So go ahead, put your hook through the center. Then for a single crochet, you yarn over, pull through. Now you have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through both loops on your hook. Again, insert your hook into the center, yarn over, pull back through the center, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through both loops on your hook. As you're doing this, you can kind of keep your tail around that chain that's in the center and tuck it into your stitches to kind of get it woven in to your stitches, so that way you don't have to go back through at the end and weave it in. So far we have 2 single crochets, and we're going to do 4 more. So you go in through the center, yarn over, pull back through the center, yarn over, pull through. That's 3. I'm going to do 3 more. Okay, so now we have 6 single crochets on our circle. You can go back through and count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This one that's on the hook doesn't count, so you should have 6 that are in the circle. Now we're ready to go on to row 2. For our second row, what we're doing is we want to go from 6 single crochets in a circle to 12 in a circle. So in order to do that, we're going to do 2 single crochets in each stitch. This is an increase. Later on we'll do kind of a pattern of increases and regular single crochets, but in this row we're doing 2 in each stitch. So you'll find your first stitch. You can notice it kind of looks like a bit of a V, and where we're inserting our hook is in this space between here and the top of the V. So you put your hook right there. You're going to yarn over, pull through. So now you have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through both loops on your hook. So that's our first stitch. For our next stitch, we're going back into the same spot. So go in, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. You can either count each stitch, so we have 2 so far, or you can use a stitch marker, or in this case I'm just using a paper clip as my stitch marker, and you can put that in the first stitch on this row, so that way if you accidentally lose count, you'll know when you get back to the end of the row. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our next stitch, just right here. I'm going to insert our hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, and again it's an increase, so our next stitch is in that same spot. Okay, so I'm going to do the rest of this row and I'm increasing in each stitch. Okay, and now I got back to where my stitch marker was, and that was my first stitch. If I'm not sure, I can go ahead and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, maybe I have 13, but that's okay. We'll go on to row 3. Okay, for row 3, what we're doing is we are doing a single crochet, then 2 single crochets in the next stitch. So what we're doing is we're doing 1 regular single crochet and then an increase in the next stitch, and then a single crochet, then an increase. So we're slowly moving it so we'll have 18 stitches in total. Since, as I said, I accidentally have 13 in my last round, I'm actually going to count this single crochet here as my first stitch. But if you did yours correctly and you have 12, you'll do a single crochet and then move on to an increase. I have my stitch marker in the final stitch in the round, and we're going to go ahead. So what you'll want to do is do a single crochet, then move on to the next stitch. I'm going to start with an increase. So I'm doing a single crochet, and then again back into the same stitch. Now I'll move on to my next stitch, and I'm just doing 1 single crochet here. Then in my next one, I'm doing an increase again. So single crochet, and then again into the same stitch. And then a single crochet, and then an increase. And I'm gonna keep doing that and finish this row. So I just counted. I'm gonna remove my stitch marker because my last stitch goes right where that was. All right, and now we're gonna move on to the next row. So we're moving on to row 4. If you look at your pattern, this one says to single crochet in next stitch, 2 single crochet in the next stitch, then single crochet in the next stitch, and you do that 6 times. So basically it's the same as our last one, but we're adding an additional single crochet. So we're going to do single crochet, increase, single crochet, single crochet, increase, single crochet, and in the end we'll have 24 stitches. So you can go ahead and take your stitch marker, put it in right there, and then get started. So we're starting with a single crochet, and then we're doing an increase in the next stitch, so that's 2 single crochets in 1 stitch. Then a single crochet again, and that ends that portion of the pattern. So now we do another single crochet, and then the increase, so 2 in 1 stitch, then a single crochet, and that ends that portion of the pattern. So essentially after your first one, you're doing an increase, then 2 single crochets, then an increase, then 2 single crochets. And I'll go ahead and finish this round. If you can't remember what your last stitch was, if you did 1 or 2 in it, you can kind of pull and look at that stitch to find out that stitch. You just pull on your hook, kind of see the stitch you just worked in, and there I only have 1 single crochet in that stitch. All right, so now that we have finished that row, we have 24 stitches going around. For the next 4 rows, we're doing a single crochet in each one, so we're going to have 24 for rows 5 through 8. So we can go ahead and just go through this quick. So it's 1 for 1 in each stitch. If you have a hard time keeping track of which row you're on, you can keep a tally, so that way once you finish a row, do a tally, so that way you're only doing 4 rows. And to keep track of where your rows start and end, you can use your stitch marker. You can also count out your stitches, so you can count 24 for each time. I do find that I get a more accurate result if I count out my stitches instead of using the stitch marker, but the stitch marker is a little bit easier. So we'll go ahead and do those 4 rows, and then I'll meet you back here when you're all done. All right, so once we finish those 4 rows, we're now at the widest part of our octopus. So this is as wide as our octopus will get. And now we're going to start decreasing the size of our rows to shrink him back down so he's a nice spherical shape. So on row 9, that's where we are in our pattern. The pattern says 2 single crochet, 2 together, and then single crochet in the next stitch. So what we're doing is called a decrease. When we single crochet 2 together, we go into the stitch, we yarn over and pull through. Then we go to our next stitch, go into the stitch, yarn over, pull through. We now have 3 loops on our hook. Then we yarn over and we pull through all 3 of those loops. So now we're going to do a regular single crochet on our next stitch. Oh, and we probably want to mark this with our stitch marker so that way we know where we'll end. Okay, so in our next stitch, which is right here, we're just doing a regular single crochet. And then we're going to do another decrease. So we go into the stitch, yarn over, pull through, into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops that are on our hook. And then we do a regular single crochet. And then another decrease. I'll show this one more time. So you go into the stitch, yarn over, pull through, into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on your hook, then you yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Now we're just going to keep doing that pattern until we finish the row. All right, so now we're ready to go on to row 10. And here things get a tiny bit complicated. So, well, it's not that complicated, but it takes a little bit of extra explaining. So what we're doing in row 10 is we're working in our back loops only. So if you look at each individual stitch, you'll see that there is two parts to it. So you have the front loop and the back loop. So in this whole row, we're only working in that back loop. We're going to leave those front loops untouched. What that's going to do is give us a little ridge of loops on the outside of our octopus, and that'll let us attach our legs to them. So in this row, we're also still decreasing and only working in those back loops. Our pattern says to chain 1 to start, just kind of gives us a little height differentiator here, so that way this row is kind of separate from the other ones where we've been spiraling. And now we're going to go in order of doing a single crochet, then single crocheting 2 together, and then a single crochet. Okay, you can use your stitch marker again, but on this row, you'll kind of be able to tell when you hit the end of the row because you're only working in the back loops. So we go into our back loop there, and we're doing a regular single crochet. And now we're going to do a decrease. So we'll go into the back loop, yarn over, pull through, into the next back loop, yarn over, pull through, then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on our hook. Okay, and then we do another single crochet working in the back loop. Okay, so that completes that first part of the pattern. Now we'll go on and again do a single crochet, then a decrease, so single crochet 2 together, only working in the back loops. And then a single crochet. And we're halfway there. So single crochet, single crochet 2 together, and single crochet. One last time, you can see here that ridge has formed on the outside, so that right there is where we end. So we single crochet in the back loops, single crochet 2 together, and then single crochet. Well, I think we actually do it one more time. Oops, sorry. Let's see. Oh, no, there's our chain stitch right there that we used to get up to the level that we are. So, yep, just one loop left. So we actually I think just want to do one more single crochet right here. Okay, and then we skip this chain that we made, and now we'll start working through both loops again for our 11th row. But before we make this one last row, we want to insert our octopus's eyes. Because after the last row, our little hole into the center of our octopus is going to be pretty small. So we're using safety eyes, and what safety eyes are these nice little round stuffed animal type eyes that have a fastener on the back. And once you insert that fastener, you cannot take it off. That's why they're safe, because the eyes don't fall off, so little kids can't end up eating them. So go ahead and find where you want the front of your octopus to be. Do mine right about there. You can really put the eyes anywhere you want. I like them to be a little bit lower. So I'm going to put mine there, and about there. And make sure you like how they look. And once you do, you can go ahead and put the fastener on the back of the safety eye. You can kind of pop it out like that, and then go ahead and put it in. Don't put it in too tight, because it'll make your eyes really squished into the body of your octopus. And they look a little bit better if they're popped out. So just push it lightly so it goes through just that first ring. And do the same for the other one. So I guess to explain, there's some ridges on the inside of the safety eyes, and we just want to push our fastener on so it goes under this first ridge. Like that. Okay. And there's his face. Okay, so for the 11th row, this is our final row, and what we're going to do is we're going to single crochet 2 together for each stitch until we end up with 6 stitches. So right now we have 12 stitches in our circle. We're going to single crochet 2 together, and that will bring us back to the same amount of stitches we had in our first part, so it's a nice sphere. So we're skipping this chain, this little part right here, from our last row. If you can't find that, that's okay. It doesn't make that big of a difference, but find your next stitch and I'm going to decrease. So single crochet 2 together. We're doing that 6 times. Okay, so now we finished up our last row. So what we're going to do is tie off by yarning over, pull through a bit extra. Then you'll snip your yarn, pull that out, and kind of cinch essentially what you made just now as a knot. So cinch that knot. We have a small space that we can use to put our stuffing into our octopus. And just take a little bit at a time and put it into that opening. And you can see, do you want more stuffing? I want a little bit more. Just a tiny, tiny bit more. Okay, now the last step that we're going to do to finish up our body is take our yarn needle and use this tail and our yarn needle to kind of sew up the last bit of that opening. So go ahead and put your yarn through the eye of your yarn needle. Then you can just kind of weave it through 2 stitches at a time. Yeah. Do it a few extra times until that opening is closed all the way. There we go. And then to make a knot, you can tie off in any way that you like. But when I make knots, when I'm sewing, I make a loop and then loop through that loop 3 times. 1. My yarn fell off. 2, 3. And that makes the knot. And then the very last thing, let me get my yarn back into my yarn needle. We're just going to take it, stick it into the bottom, push our needle all the way through the top so that little tail gets hidden inside of our octopus. And then we can just snip right there. There we go. Alright, so now our body is complete and we're going to create our octopus's legs. So if you look, you can find that ridge from the row where we only worked in the back loops. And we'll use this ridge. You can stick your hook through it. We're going to crochet into this ridge to make our legs. So our first step will be bringing our yarn into one of these loops of the ridge. You can go ahead and just make a slip stitch, which is where you just yarn over and pull through 1 time. Now we'll move on to our next little ridge, and what we're going to do is a half double crochet. And we're going to do, the pattern says 5, but I like to do 6 half double crochets in each of these loops. So for a half double crochet, you yarn over first, then you go in through the loop, you yarn over again, pull through, you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Now we're going to work in this same stitch to make 6 total, so 5 more times. So again, that's yarning over, going into the loop, yarn over, pull out of the loop, yarn over, and then pull through all 3 loops on your hook. So that's 2, yarn over, into the loop, yarn over, pull out of the loop. You have 3 loops on your hook, then you yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. do that 3 more times. Okay, so that is our first leg. Then we're going to go into our next loop, and you can just do a slip stitch here, is what I think the pattern says, but I actually sometimes just do a regular single crochet because it's kind of hidden anyways. So go ahead and do a single crochet in that stitch, and then in the next one we're going to do 6 half double crochets again. So we're going to do this pattern of 6 half double crochets, then a single crochet, 6 half double crochets, and a single crochet. So for the half double crochet, you yarn over, go through the loop, yarn over, pull back through, yarn over, pull through all 3. Yarn over, into the loop, yarn over, pull back through the loop, yarn over, through all 3. And then in the next stitch, go ahead and just do a single crochet. Okay, and you can see we have 2 little legs so far, so we're going to go through all of the stitches, and you should end up with 8 legs in total. Okay, so once you finish making your legs, hopefully you have 8. If you don't have 8, that's okay. It took me a while to make sure I got all 8 legs when I was first learning how to do this. To tie off, you'll do a slip stitch, pull that through a little bit extra, snip it, and then use your yarn needle take that, and then like we did before, poke it through the body of the octopus to kind of pull through and hide that tail. And you can do that with the little tail that's there from when you started. Just tucking those away. And then we'll snip them off. Right, and now you have your little octopus. There's one more thing we can do. It's optional. It's adding a little mouth, and I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so the pattern calls this a takochu mouth. So what we're going to do is start with a slip stitch, or not a slip stitch, sorry, a slip knot, like we did in the beginning. Okay, now the pattern says that to do this, you can chain 2 and work into the first chain. So chain 1, and then chain 2, so yarn over, oops, yarn over, and pull through, and then work into the first chain. So that is the spot right by our slip knot, right there. Go into that, and we're going to single crochet 6. So we're making a little circle of 6. So go into the first chain, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. So that's 1, back into that center spot, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, 2, and we keep doing that till we have 6. Okay, so that is 6, and then we're going to tie off by doing a slip stitch, pulling through extra, snipping, bring that all the way through, and making a little knot. Okay, so basically we just have a tiny little circle here, and this is going to be our mouth. So we'll use our yarn needle to attach it using these 2 tails. So go ahead and put one of the tails through the eye of the needle. Find a nice little center spot between your 2 eyes for this mouth. Put your needle through the center and try and poke it through some of the stitches like that. Pull it through. Okay, then we're going to come back around and through the center. Again, kind of pull it through like that. I'm just going to do it one time there and then kind of make a little knot. And again, when I make knots, I make a loop and then I go through my loop 3 times with my needle. 1, 2, 3, and I pull it tight to make a knot. Okay, and then I'm going to take this tail and again poke it backwards through the octopus to hide it, and I'll snip that off. Okay, now I have this other tail that I can sew through as well to make it more secure. So I put that through the eye of my needle. I'm going to go around, going to go around the back and bring it up through the center. There we go. And then around the side and think about how I want to do this. I guess I'll go around the side, back through the center, and then we'll bring it around the side and tie a knot. Okay. Then once you have your knot tied, again, we're going to poke this tail through the back to get it hidden. You can kind of adjust your mouth a little bit. There you go, and then just snip these tails And your octopus is finished. I hope you enjoyed making this tiny octopus. If your octopus isn't quite perfect, keep working on it and make another. It took me a few tries to get my octopus right. If you enjoyed this pattern, Mohair has another free pattern for a Dumbo octopus that is equally cute and very similar to make. Thanks for crafting with me today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye!